Hey,
There you go.
Hey Kathy.
Thanks for coming. Glad
I'll call the meeting to order. Present are Elvin Campbell, Richard Wisniewski, myself, visiting visiting board members of David Scrivenger, Kathy Robine, and Christina Quatz, and our administrative liaison, Wendy Cartledge, and of course Molly. Want to stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, anybody want to move to approve the agenda?
I move.
Second.
All in favor? Passes unanimously. And we have one set of minutes from July 15 to approve.
We just received July 15th minutes.
So moved. And second. All in favor? Unanimous. Okay, we'll move along now to public comments, of which there are none, and continuation of policy review. We have, when we broke last time, we were gonna revisit Roman, 5.1, Roman numeral 6 and 7. And then we'll have to go back into 5.1, Roman numeral 3, to deal with one issue. Then we go back to page 1 and start to review all of it. Okay. Does anyone have any thoughts around 6 and 7? The basis of what was being discussed was that, can the board really give guidance without formal vote? We do have a policy that states that, that's, all right, that's the 7. All right, so, does anybody have any suggestions or comments about 6 and 7?
Here.
Could we maybe mirror the language in 6 to 7 to add, it says board will make decisions by formal recorded vote. Could we maybe add in the part that says actions, direction, decision to 7?
How would you word it? Good suggestions.
The board will make, the board will make actions, or the board will give actions, direction, and decision by formal recorded vote in order to avoid any confusion about whether direction has been given or not. I mean, I think 7 really addresses 6 and in the method of how, but.
Well, yeah, the second sentence of 6 is mentioned in about 4 other places in the policy manual. That individual board members have no prerogative to expect the superintendent to do what they say. So I don't know if it confuses things, I don't know if it confuses things to leave it here. The first sentence is clearly repetitive to 7. But the elephant in the room is that what we were discussing is how do we exit out of executive session without having taken a wink and a nod poll around the table to get the will of the board, which is in violation of the statute. So what do you think? You wanna just junk, you wanna scrap 6 for the sake of 7 and just leave it at that?
I wouldn't scrap it entirely unless additional language was added to 7 to make sure that it encompassed the entire extent of 6.
All right, so we got the board will make decisions by formal recorded vote in order to avoid any confusion about whether direction has been given or not, right? And then you want what?
Where it says in 6, where it discusses actions, direction, decisions, and guidance from the majority of the board, I think that language could be added to 6 if that's.
Doesn't that contradict in a way 7? You can't, 7 is saying you can't give direction without taking a vote.
I don't think so, but I'll let you know, okay? And did you see my email from this together? When you get,
I read it a little bit differently. I think 6 is saying that the majority of the board can give actions, direction, like it encompasses more than just the recorded vote aspect of it.
How does the board document what it did? If it doesn't take a vote, I'm just asking rhetorically now.
No, I'm just thinking of different instances where where it wasn't something that necessarily needed a vote, where we just provided, what we were looking for.
But that's totally without force. Go back to the April work session, when we discussed for 2 hours what we wanted to see in the budget. And after 2 hours, I asked Mrs. Crosby, what guarantees do we have that these suggestions will make it into the budget? And she smiled and said, none at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because we hadn't made a motion,
Right.
okay?
But so if we require that, or we desire that,
So-
then we make a motion and we move forward with action.
So if we give our opinion to the superintendent, that opinion is not binding.
It's not. But I don't think it's the end all be all.
Then it shouldn't be in-
I
it shouldn't
think
be
if
in
you have
policy.
both avenues, there's nothing wrong with that. I think if you have a working relationship, then, and a good working relationship, then when you do make those suggestions and that guidance, then it'll move forward. If you get to a point to where you feel like you're being stalled, and you need to make a motion and make some action, then you do so. That's the purpose of
okay.
us.
How do you translate that then from executive session into public session? You can't give guidance in executive session without doing something in public
Okay,
to back it up, right?
right?
Okay, so you have to give the same guidance in public, is that what you're saying?
I think we do, when it's something that needs to be binding.
Well, many a time ago, is at the will of the board, Outings famous for it. Tell me what to do in executive session. You can't tell anybody what to do in executive session.
Well, maybe
It's
in
not
those-
the purpose of it.
Maybe in those instances, you do have to vote formally if you can't tell them what to do in execuve session, you do have a will. But other times, circumstances where even when we're having a board meeting, someone does a presentation and 3 or 4 people might voice some individual concerns, but and other board members not denying what they want to see or what they like. That's in my mind, that's direction of the board.
Time and time again, would come up with something and former superintendent would say, oh, the board told me 3 years ago to do this. Or and there's no record of what happens in executive session.
I'm not talking executive session, I'm talking the regular meeting. Executive session, yeah, you may have to vote if you want something documented, that this was the direction we came up with, but that's why they vote when they cut out, right, most of the time.
Well, I hear you, but what I'm sensing is, if we need a policy to say that in general discussion, we'll express our opinions to the superintendent, we might as well have a policy that says we'll say hello, it's meaningless.
I don't think so.
No.
I think
From a policy
I think
point
that
of view.
fosters good, open relationship and dialogue. And then if you feel that you need to make a motion or make action happen, then you do so. And this provides both those, I think. I think it
Yeah.
allows for a good relationship, but
Okay.
Tina.
Yeah, I agree with Rachel and Mel, I mean, you've got to have a working relationship with the superintendent, and not everything is gonna be directed by board vote, it's just not. And Kathy has started, as we all are aware, an executive session to take notes, recap what's happened, because no minutes are ever taken. And a good example is Will Smith, okay, the last meeting, I guess I better not say, because we're being recorded for this meeting, I can't say.
And the other way, look at it the other way around. If he's only gonna take direction from formal votes, that we'll be voting on everything, every minute of the time. If he says, give me a formal vote on that.
that's
I
true.
mean,
We are a legal political body
you understand
who
that?
can only instruct the superintendent on what we want done by taking a vote. Otherwise, there is no record of us having done that, and there's no proof that it was a majority opinion. If two people say, I think you should do this, and nobody else voices an objection, does that mean that there was a majority of the board?
I don't know, I'm thinking when we hired him with a certain amount of expertise and skills, correct? I mean, or else and that responsibility of executing many of our things are generally accepted. And there are some things that in between having to direct him and what he's got planned, and those things, I think, are the things we're now talking about that does not have to always be formal. And that's my mind. I mean, if we're gonna direct him everything, then we really need a lot more people here. And we need to analyze our system of educating a lot more if we're gonna direct him on all the things.
Okay, I'm almost there. I just don't understand why it's being positioned as to vote on each and every little thing. All it's saying is that when we do want to direct him to do something, it's gonna be by vote and no other way. That doesn't mean that you can't give advice, okay? But advice has no force at all. And so you can't have a policy that expects the superintendent to follow advice if it hasn't been given to the board.
I think that also goes to some individual accountability. We have to be accountable for what advice we're seeking, or what we are looking for from the superintendent. If we're asking for something and we want there to be some bite to it, then certainly make a motion. But that's up to our own as individuals and district representatives to make sure that we do that, we fulfill that job. I don't think that policy necessarily has to guide that. I mean, I certainly would be accountable if I sought a directive on something and we had a majority of a, conclusion that yes, this needed to be sought after, and then nothing ever came of it. That's also on me for not following up. It's not just on the superintendent, it's also on me. I mean,
Well-
it's twofold.
Okay? Just, you cannot take the person out of the conversation now, okay? You can't hold the superintendent accountable for not taking your advice. Okay? We recognize that.
I recognize that.
Yeah.
Now, do other board members
Well, that's
recognize
why
that?
we
I don't
got-
know, that's
that's
why
why
we have
we
a
got-
policy that gives
that's
us.
the point.
That's why we got 7.
Yeah.
That's why
But
we
you're
got
not
7.
voting, how do you know there's 7?
7 is,
Oh,
we
the
will
7.
take it to the vote then, because he didn't respond to
I
what
certainly
was
did.
generally an informal direction, now we gotta make it formal. But I don't think you could just have 7 and operate, I think the policy have to allow him to operate without 7, but also 7 is the
Okay.
hammer across the
I
head if it
understand the need
doesn't
for
have to.
teeth.
One thing and then we'll
Yeah.
put it to a vote, okay?
Okay.
The board will make decisions by formal recorded vote, not offer advice.
Right,
They're two separate things.
okay. Okay,
So
And that's
if you
correct.
want something to be binding, you gotta make a decision and make it a vote. Otherwise, you
agreed.
have no recourse later.
But, I mean, it's just me, I don't know.
Well, can I'm thinking, like, I'm thinking of this in terms from the academic committee. You know, when we have some questions that are academically oriented for the superintendent, and, you know, some of us are steeped in academic backgrounds, so when we ask him questions or, you know, give him some direction, I feel like the superintendent, especially at this time when he's it instructionally, since we don't have a, you know, that we don't necessarily have to all vote on that. We're asking for information, we're asking him to follow through, and I feel like that's what that one gives us the
Okay.
opportunity to do.
All I'm
That's just
saying
my-
is that, yeah, and that's fine at the committee level. I believe at the board level, that you're asking for trouble in 5 years, you're not gonna be able to tell what happened, because that's what we face now. Of course, nobody's interested in knowing what happened 5 years ago. So we'll put it to a vote, okay? Yes, Wendy?
I just
before
wanna talk
Uh,
about something with
wait a
y'all
minute.
that has to do with security. So, under the FOIA, it says, information relating to security plans and devices proposed, adopted, installed, or utilized by a public body, other than amounts expended for adoption, implementation, or installation of these plans and devices, is required to be closed to the public and is not considered to be made open to the public under the provisions of this act. So, with respect to our security, Mr. Grissom may very likely have some information he wants to give to you and discuss in executive session your thoughts and your ideas. For example, Rachel, you've been to that program and you gained a lot of information. Another teacher has been talking with her Parkland teacher about some things that they've done for security. And those are things that need to be closed to the public, that we need to keep private and confidential. And that, so in a situation like that, we may ask you for guidance and direction in executive session. What do you think about this plan or this plan?
Can't do it.
This says right here, information
Excuse
related to.
me.
Okay,
You can discuss it in executive session, you can receive the information, and then go out and make a motion to adopt this plan or this plan or this plan without disclosing the contents of the plan.
for adoption, implementation, or installation, but
Yeah.
say we're talking about, we have certain different plans that we're considering, we want your input. And we're not asking you for you to adopt or implement it yet, because we have several alternatives
Right,
that
would
we're
be-
looking at, and it's something to talk about in executive session, because that's close to public, because we don't wanna compromise our security.
Right.
Does that make sense? It's not
No.
a, so,
I'm sorry,
no,
what makes sense to me is that you discuss the various options, then you go out in a public session and somebody makes a motion to adopt one of those options, and that either passes or fails.
Well, let me
That's the
maybe give
purpose
some
of
more-
executive session
Let
under
me
the
give a little
law.
bit, maybe more of a hypothetical or a scenario. So one of those security firms could come in and say, okay, we've got these different options for external fortification of a school.
Yeah,
Here's what it would cost to do that, da, da, da. Or maybe they're coming in and just saying, we have all these, but we don't know how much it would cost, you know?
Mhm.
So you have to then decide, which plan do you think is the best?
Or you want
And
us
then-
to do
'cause they're
further
But
trying
you
to
have to
because they're-
decide in public.
but they're trying to put together a comprehensive package. Typically, they're gonna give you a bunch of different options, and then you're gonna have to cherry pick what you're gonna want, and then they'll come forward with a full package, and then you'll vote on the full package. They don't just come at you and say, you know, here's everything. They'll probably give you a plan A, plan B, plan C, and then you'll formally vote to adopt one of those, but there's gonna be a lot of options when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yes, and those options can be discussed in public without giving away the details to them. That's
I was
part of the skills
respectfully
required in the
disagree.
language of being on a board.
But the statute says.
Based on our history with, what I saw at the last security firm that presented, the information that they gave was still too much, in my opinion.
They did
It was
what?
what?
The information
too
they
much
gave in public
in
session
public,
was still
yeah.
too much to identify. There was things that, I mean, beyond, I don't wanna get too much into it, but I respectfully disagree.
Well, I respect your opinion. All right, we'll put it to a vote. You wanna make a motion
What do I make a motion for?
for the wording of the combination of 6 and 7?
No,
You know, combine them.
no. I mean, unless we, I think they've served completely different
I think
purposes.
they need to remain.
Yeah.
I think the same
This is-
discussion we had on this before.
Yes.
Yeah,
All right, we'll vote on them individually, okay? So I move that we accept Roman numeral 6,
Second.
okay? All those in favor? Okay. All opposed?
Okay.
I don't think you can
Okay,
oppose
seven.
something you make a motion on.
I'm sorry?
If you make a
You can-
motion,
you
you
can
can't
not
vote
vote.
against it.
Yeah, you can now vote, but I don't think you can.
I'm
vote
sorry?
against
If
it.
you make the motion, you can't vote against it.
Really?
According to Roberts. So you probably wanna pass the gavel or some gerrymandered
Will you make the
thing.
motion, please?
make the motion to accept 6 as
Yeah.
it is. Okay, make the motion to accept 6.
Okay, second.
Okay.
Now John can carry it.
Okay,
Okay.
so now we gotta vote.
No, yeah, he gotta carry the vote, but he's still the chair now. It was, when he made the motion, he advocated the chair.
Alright,
So it's still 2 to 1.
Yes,
just the method alone.
that's good.
Now, can I have a motion on 7?
I move, we accept 7 as written.
Okay.
Okay,
Call for vote?
yeah.
Okay. All those, no, you have to call.
No, you call, you the chair.
Not, when you're making the motion,
I do the
No, my
motion,
point
John.
was, if you make the motion, you cannot vote against it.
okay.
I made the motion,
All right,
John.
all in favor? Opposed?
Okay,
So 6 and 7 stay as
yeah,
they are.
they stay as they are. We
Motion,
presented to the
both
board.
motions
Yeah.
carried, all right?
So now we're back to
Further
December,
discussion.
or are we going back to 3?
Yeah, we're going back to the superintendent's role, I think that is, right?
Thank you.
Okay, now I wanna go back to 5-1 before we start a general rule, okay? Make sure that there's nothing compromising what we just decided on. Number 2, number 1, does anybody have an issue with number 1?
I'm sorry, so what are we doing now?
We're going back 5-1.
5-1,
Is that
Starting
fine?
it, do
Yes,
this over?
stop.
Okay,
We're just looking at it, we're
Yeah.
gonna look at,
okay.
number 3, right?
Hmm?
That's the one we really wanna look at, right?
5-1, Roman numeral 1.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Okay, so the meaning of this is that the board reviews administrative regulations. There is no autonomy for the administration to adopt and implement administrative regulations, okay? The board can review them for content and to determine whether or not it ties to a board policy that's cited, okay? Good? All right. Number 2, the board holds the superintendent responsible for the execution of board decisions. And then and the provision of information to the board about school operations. Okay, everybody all right with that? Number 3 went away, that's good. All right, the board will do the following. Select a competent, established educational leader as superintendent and support that person in their discharge for assigned duties. All right? Serve as the policy, and this is the board now, serve as the
Yeah,
policy-making
that's good,
body.
Yeah.
Allow the superintendent to administrate the schools. I'm not sure what that means unless it means don't don't get involved in the operations.
That's what it is.
Abundantly stated
How do you-
17 other places. Adopt an annual budget. I would like to insert the words vet and review and adopt an annual budget. So that we can get away from the actual perception and the public perception that we passed a budget without not knowing much of what was in it.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Okay? So, I'll skip the word. That examine, review, and adopt an annual budget, okay?
Okay.
Exercise sound judgment in business affairs of the
Right.
district. Do we really need that?
That don't make any sense.
No, I didn't think so, it was correct.
But it's sound judgment.
Sounds like the Boy Scout code. Deal always in an ethical, honest, straightforward, open, and above-board manner with the superintendent and the community. Huh?
Another questionable thing in my mind. I mean, what's above board?
Cue the soundtrack, right. Approve an organizational structure for the administration. Not to be confused with org chart, right? Yeah,
Right.
so I think that should stay. Anybody got a problem with it staying?
No, I think that's necessary, yeah.
Approved
Yeah.
salary schedules and other personnel policies. There's another one that says, B says with a policy-making body, so I don't know why personnel policies are highlighted in H. And do we really approve salary schedules other than the budget, I don't think anybody comes to us, do they?
I don't know,
And
I
say-
think this is right out of the state statute though.
Okay.
You might wanna check that.
Receive and review reports of the superintendent concerning the progress of the schools. That's good. We took J away. Communicate with staff members through the superintendent, oh, okay, now. We had,
That's in 3.4, isn't it?
yeah, communicate with staff members through the superintendent.
But yeah, that was what,
Yeah,
3.2 or
3.4.
3.4.
It's covered under 3.4, Roman numeral 13.
Yeah, all right, so
So I think we.
I would take this J in 5.1 out because 13 is a much better description, in my view.
What is J, I mean, what is, let me read that again.
It says communicate with staff members through the superintendent.
No, the only difference in that is, in my mind, is one is talking about individual board members, and the other is talking about the board
Oh,
generally.
okay, all right, we'll leave it. Good point. Okay, hear appeals of school employees and citizens of the community from decisions of the superintendent. I can't imagine what appeals would be made by citizens on decisions of the superintendent.
Students,
Students, if parent, it would be the parents,
Just the
students,
parents,
Yeah,
because I asked that question
Yeah,
previously.
student discipline.
okay. All right. Present the needs of the schools to the citizens of the community, all right. Adopt school standards, textbooks, and annual school calendar. I guess that's, the textbooks is technically correct. Not like in Texas, but nonetheless. All right, and then we got the superintendent will do the following. Okay, so we okay on what the board does, all right? Let's go back to page 1 then. Board role and job description. Now, just so, my understanding is that these are the changes that we have made so far. You know, the task is to make sure that they are what we thought they were. Okay, so it should go a little bit faster then.
So can I ask, so are the red was what the school board association did?
Well, okay, that,
And
yeah,
the blue is what you guys have done?
no,
No.
the red, yeah, the red may have come from the school committee, but this particular package shows that we bought that. Okay, so whether it's red or blue right now, in this document, doesn't matter.
But
This
isn't it changes by one group or another? That's all I'm asking.
Hmm?
Doesn't that reflect some, whether changes were made by your committee versus the school board association?
This reflects what we examined and suggested that we change. Sometimes it was word for word what the school board suggested to
No,
us.
no, I think you're
My
asking,
question,
she's
yeah.
asking a question whether, when we scratched through it, we were scratching through recommendations from the state school board. I'm not sure, I think these were just changes that were made earlier.
Some of those were made earlier, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
That's
earlier.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
we went back and
Okay.
decided
So you
some of
can't really
those
tell
changes.
what your input was on
But
this
we
document.
agreed that,
Yeah. Our input was basically all the lines that you got drawn through.
Oh,
And, you
And-
know, yeah, the lines that, we got this as, I guess what, the second reading was due or something on some of the changes.
right.
So some of those changes we have changed again.
okay.
yeah, we agreed that the
Yeah.
first reading was really
That's my
wasn't
understanding.
applicable
Yeah,
to what we were doing, that
Yeah.
would just resubmit the whole thing, the whole
Yeah.
product,
yeah.
for a first reading.
But the format is that the red came from the school board association and the blue came from your committee. That's the
what I'm
format
asking.
that Robin was following.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, the
I don't know
board,
if
the
it's
board
different.
will be voting on it regardless
Yeah.
of where it came from.
Correct.
But I'm just trying to give
Yeah,
you a
exactly,
straight
that's the
answer.
answer. That's exactly, thank you.
Okay, we clear?
Mhm.
All right. The role of the school board is to focus community attention towards ensuring the successful education of students in a manner consistent with the core beliefs, vision, and mission adopted by the board. I know I stated this before, but I'll just try it one more time. Is that, the role of the board is much more inclusive than that. I think the role of the board is to be the governing body of the school district.
And the statute 59/1990, general powers and duties of school trustees. Do you all wanna reference any of that in here about providing schoolhouses, employing discharged teachers, controlling school property, visiting schools, control education under the district, charge matriculation, incidental fees? I mean, you have a lot of statutory
Well, yeah, but
duties.
all those, yeah, I think,
If we go
I
on to
think
two,
some of those things are covered, not because of their words.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure I cited that in it, because that is your statutory, is your powers and duties.
would anyone object if we said as the governing body of the school district, the role of the board is to focus community. I mean, the way this is written, our sole job is to be a rooting section for the administration, I think. Sorry, but that's the only way I can describe it.
That's covered in 2.2 where you enroll. 1, the second sentence.
2.2 what?
Roman numeral 1, the second sentence. It says, the legally constituted
Oh,
governing
yeah.
body is the board.
Okay,
It's the governance committee.
then why shouldn't that be in the role of the board? I'm just trying to say that I think that this role as described is a little too narrow compared to what we have to do.
Well, that whole policy 2.2 is the governance commitment. So, I mean, it probably goes much more in-depth actually into what you're covering in just a separate section altogether.
Okay, so how about if we have, let's try to
I
get
think
the,
this is the.
This is broad, yeah.
I think the role and description is kind of the more broad, and then
Yeah,
the
that's
governance
broad.
is more the legal
Yeah.
aspect of it. I think this is more of the broad
Where would-
overarching, and then this is
Where will you
the,
don't mind?
Starting
First
over.
page,
this is,
first page.
okay, I just heard of some
Basically.
previous, okay, there have been cases where that has caused dispute in board discussions, okay, about what the role of the board is, because it put governance in a second back seat to,
Yeah.
the
Well,
community.
It is backseat to what the general role is. I mean, yeah, governance is probably one of the primary roles, but the overall role of the board is to focus on the community's, protect the community's concerns, and not just by governing. All right, but by doing a lot of other things, keeping the community involved, keeping the community active with what's going on, that ain't governing. So governance comes underneath that, and I think it's written right.
I mean, we certainly can add more to the governance part of it, if you think that it's been overlooked in the past to give
it's
it more
just-
teeth or something.
Yeah, it's just my
Governance.
opinion that I've said, as the governing body of the district, the role of the board is to focus community.
Right. There you go.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a difference.
What's that? I didn't hear, what's that?
Well, he wants to add governing to
Well
the
said,
key
yeah.
role, and I said, that's not the key role, that's an important role of the board, but the key role of the board is, Robert, is community protection of the kids and the students. And that don't always mean governance of what you, in terms of policies and stuff like that, it means the whole total picture. That's why we're doing all of this, else we could just stop at governance and that's it. There's a lot of things other than governance in this policy packet.
Okay. Roman numeral 2. The law requires the board to discharge certain duties and confers upon it legislative, executive, and judicial powers. A, the board functions primarily as a legislative body to formulate and adopt policy while employing a superintendent, under whose leadership school personnel will carry out the policies of the board. So far, so good. The policies will be put in written form and continually reevaluated in terms of changing needs and the functions of public education. Through these policies and board action, the board will fulfill the following responsibilities. Everybody okay with that? One, facilitate the achievement and objectives and advancement towards goals set for the superintendent and the district by the board. Okay? Establish expectations for student achievement, provide resources to enable students to meet those expectations, and hold the superintendent accountable for the academic progress of all district students, okay? 3, rigorously monitor performance against approved performance benchmarks. This is now 4, adopt operating and capital budgets that support the board's strategic plan. 5, exercise stewardship by monitoring the use of resources to ensure that operating and capital funds are spent wisely and effectively. Hence, the committees. 6, ensure the district complies with state and or local procurement processes. 7, adopt procedures for meetings, electing board officers, and ensuring compliance with local, state, and federal laws and directives of the South Carolina Department of Education. So far, so good? 8, foster the participation of minority-owned and women-owned business enterprises in the BCSD procurement process.
Can I say something? John?
Sure.
While we're going through it, if, any of the folks here, board members, I see something that was scratched out that maybe you wanna revisit, I think this is the time to do it, right? I mean, or else, you don't think so?
I would think so.
Yeah, or else we go to the board meeting and we had some of the same things again,
Yeah.
or one more time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was just saying, be mindful of what was eliminated, because you got lines drawn through stuff that you're not reading, but maybe you read it and there might be an argument to re-vet it, Yeah.
So along that vein, so number 4, just crossed out, hire a superintendent. So is that covered in A, cause it says the board functions primarily as a legislative body to formulate and adopt policy while employing a superintendent, so I guess that covers hiring a superintendent.
Yeah,
Cause that is one of our main jobs, is to hire the superintendent.
yeah, I would think so. I mean, yeah. But, on the other hand,
We discussed, Wendy, maybe you can help me out here, we discussed that in terms of how the, section B, the board will serve in an executive function to the extent it hires a superintendent whose
Okay.
qualifications meet those contained in
Yeah,
the
we got
super.
it.
Okay?
Yeah.
that's pretty fine,
Where were we?
8.
yeah.
Foster the, they advocate for the needs of the school district and the children it serves with local, state, and federal elected and appointed officials. Board members should remain informed of pending legislation and actively communicate board positions and concerns to the community and elected representatives at the local, state, and national levels. Yeah, that makes sense. Anybody got an issue with that? Yes, Rachel.
I just wanted to ask, cause I can't remember, this was probably from one of our very first meetings. Did we add the board positions board positions by vote, was basically what I'm getting at. But it says board members should remain informed of pending legislation, actively communicate board positions and concerns to the community and elected representatives at the local, state, and national levels. I just,
Yeah,
We
there
didn't
is no board position without a vote. Right?
yeah,
So what we did this year, if you recall, was to, Kathy drafted that letter
mhm,
onto the Beaufort County Legislative Delegation. We did vote,
mhm.
I signed it, sent to them, and posted on the Beaufort County School District website.
Right,
Yeah.
I just,
So, that was our, now, did it go to, I'm not sure it went to, national levels.
yeah.
I mean, everybody gave input to that,
Right.
but I don't think we ever took a vote on
Yeah,
it.
we did.
But we did vote
Did
on
we
it.
vote on
did,
it? Okay.
yes, we did vote,
Yeah.
Okay.
because that was our position
I
to
just don't
the
remember.
Beaufort County
Yeah.
Legislative Delegation, that was the
Okay.
way the way we provided that input, yeah.
Yep.
And then it's posted, I'm not sure it's still on the Beaver County School District website, but it was there for a long time. Maybe it is still on there. It was like front and center.
Sort of, kinda, yeah. I just-
You're
I
looking for
wasn't-
the word by vote,
I was looking for the by vote part of it,
yeah.
yeah. And it wasn't to do with that, it was everything that led up before that, before the
Yeah.
it just, there was some other things.
Well, I mean, I guess it maybe it wouldn't hurt to just put by vote. I mean, that's what that's what you want to see in there. I wouldn't see a problem with that.
Want to put in there approved board positions?
Something like that.
Yeah, that would be a good way to
Yeah.
do it.
Because
How about board positions, comma, determined by vote, comma, and
yeah, something
concerns?
like that, I think,
Is that all right?
yeah.
I'm thinking, I'm reading and thinking.
Okay, got that, Molly? Okay.
Is that okay with you?
Respect the value and importance of all students and employees.
I don't know if that's a bold thing. Number 9.
Okay.
Number 9?
Yeah,
That's nice, yeah.
I'm not concerned.
Oh,
The more I'm reading that, the more I'm thinking it's not a board thing per se, it's a board member thing.
Right, that's,
Hmm?
It's board positions, it says board members are gonna communicate board positions, because remember, they can't communicate.
Yeah, okay.
Can't talk
Okay.
to the board.
it does, yeah. It
So you're
doesn't
saying
mean
the
you
board
can. It
positions
does not
have
mean
to
you
be
cannot
voted on?
express your own opinion,
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
but you just have to,
and we do.
was that understood though, when they said board positions?
So maybe
Right, yeah,
David's
I-
wording is better to communicate approved board positions.
Now, if you wanna put approved there, yes, but if it's board position, then that
Or you don't even need it.
officially is approved, right?
okay, how about, all right, how about board approved positions?
Go ahead,
Board-
go ahead.
board appointed position.
Board approved positions?
Yeah, put it in there.
Oh, when you said approved, then I mean that someone can just appoint someone versus voting. I mean,
Well, no, not one
No,
person can speak
like,
for the
when
board.
it comes to like, our
Beautiful,
positions on
yeah.
pending
Okay,
litigation,
okay.
stuff like that, or what our priorities are.
Okay. okay.
Yeah.
Right, approved.
And it's just a simple matter
Okay.
of, if the board has voted, you can say the board feels that.
Yes,
And if
yes.
the board hasn't voted, you can just preface it by saying, in my opinion,
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
because
and
it's,
that's all it takes.
I think it's clear right as it's written down, that's what it means.
So, no, so it's gonna be.
All right, back to
And
11.
communicate board approved
The board will
positions.
annually set
That's all you
goals
To get the by vote.
designed to assist the board and governance team. What does that mean? There is no governance team besides the
You
board,
skipped some words,
huh?
Yeah, the board will evaluate, will
you skipped
annually
the
set
black
goals
words.
through annual self-evaluation designed to assist the board and governance team to build a unified body of effective leaders. Through continuous involvement, self-evaluation will be designed to. But,
Okay, I'm just zeroing in on the governance team
okay,
designation. I'm not sure what that means with the board in front of it. There is no,
I think it's referring to your officers,
officers, yeah.
to what?
to your officers.
Well, they're part of the board.
I'm not arguing with you, I'm just telling you what
I
it's,
know, I know.
what it's supposed to, what it's referencing. Because the officers are supposed to be building a unified body of effective leaders, blah, blah, blah. That's the school board's wording, not mine.
You think it means the officers of
Yeah, I
the
think you're
board?
right. Uh-huh.
I think
That's
that's
the
what
only way
they're
it makes
referring.
sense.
But I'm guessing, I don't know.
Yeah, I
They're not
think
my
it
words.
means the administrative team.
So is there a compelling need to separate the officers from the board as far as this policy goes?
No.
Well, the self-evaluation tool will not just evaluate the board, but it also would evaluate the officers of the board. So I think that's the purpose of it. But the language of governance team, I would prefer that to say board officers, personally.
I'm
You
not
have to be more
objecting to
specific.
anything,
It's legal.
not objecting to anything in it except for the reference to governance team, because the board is the governance team. And it's,
Well,
So-
It
the-
implies-
The board has a sub-governance team, I don't know what you wanna call them.
We're not-
So you want to separate, or identify, yeah,
Officers,
you want
that's
to
what-
reference
yeah.
the officers
Yes.
in a separate, and I'm in a totally opposite view.
Them too.
Huh?
That's what I'm saying, we gotta evaluate the officers too.
So
No, that means that the,
They're the
So,
effective
okay.
leader.
Annual self-evaluation designed to assist the board and governance
That's
team.
what means the board
Ability to
officers
fight
are the
crime.
effective leader.
it's just a difference of opinion. I view the officers as an administrative function, not a managerial function. A managerial function, they can tell us what to do and what to think, et cetera, et cetera. An administration function, they merely serve to smooth the process out for all of us to be doing our jobs in equal.
Well, it depends on how you define governance, and that's,
But I don't think
Yeah,
this really
that's the
talks
thing.
about managerial or
Right.
administrative. I think this
Well-
is just talking about the board will work together to set the goals annually and to design a self-evaluation tool that is to assist us as the board and the officers.
Okay, but who is on the governance team? That's what I'm
The,
trying.
the officers,
Huh?
the
you don't want
officers.
that.
They're no, why are they different? Why are they special?
Not that they're special, it's that they operate in different capacities in the board.
Gov-
as a whole.
Governance this time
No.
don't mean what you think it means.
Well, okay, for example,
I mean,
for
it's like a
example,
govern,
in this
govern-
manual,
They set
In this-
agendas, they set agendas for the meeting.
yeah.
in this manual, it says what the secretary's responsibilities are, right? So that's something that obviously needs an evaluation tool, because you can't say what someone's supposed to do and not be able to evaluate it. So, but the board cohesively should be able to determine what that tool is.
You don't mind that, he's objective.
You understand what I'm saying?
I hear you,
Yeah.
but I really,
But you wanna change
I
the
really
term?
have a problem with identifying the officers
Change the
as
term.
having a separate function. They're one of 11, they're an elected official, they have no managerial responsibility for the board.
You wanna say, what else, what
But I
you
don't
wanna
think
call
that's
them,
what
what
it
you wanna
says.
call the officers? Just call them what you wanna call them and put that in there. What you wanna call them?
I wanna say, designed to assist the board to build a unified body of effective leaders.
Okay,
That's fine.
now
So-
here's my,
So
here's
no
my,
evaluation.
That's what a self-evaluation is, right?
okay.
Well, yeah, but later on, we gonna talk about evaluating those officers too, right? Don't we
We'd
evaluate?
be evaluating them as a part of the board's operation,
Okay, that's good.
not as,
Yeah.
unless they wanna subject themselves to a special evaluation
They do get
of their
one,
effectiveness as officers.
they get one,
Uh-huh.
don't they?
If they have
No.
specific job responsibilities separate and apart from the board, then they
From
should
mine.
get one.
Yeah,
Can I just make a comment here? The way that I read this, I think that it's like, it's designed to assist the board and officers. To me, it's like, who's gonna grab it and say, okay, we're gonna write this self-evaluation, who's gonna head it up? Who's gonna get all the input from everyone? And, I mean, things like that, if you don't specify it, I think it doesn't happen. It just, we talk about what we're gonna do, and then if no one takes ownership of it,
Well,
and this
the
kinda
governance.
gives it,
that's why they did governance.
this kind of says, okay, the officers will make sure this happens, not in a vacuum,
Right, that's
but,
right.
so that's my
That's-
only
that-
2 cents for it, that's what
I
I think it
agree with you,
means,
Kathy.
but,
I think he's over extending the term governance.
Then maybe we need to just.
Governance
outline
just
it as
means
board officers
managerial in
as
this
opposed
case,
to
and the managers are the officers.
I think what Kathy's saying has merit, I'm just,
so maybe, what if we said, John, designed to assist the board and officers to build a self-evaluation, or something like that, take out the unified body, to build an effective body of effective leaders through continuous improvement, that's the goal? I don't know.
Or we would want to have a unified body. We would all want to be on one accord as officers and as a board. So I would have a problem taking out unified body, because we should be unified, regardless of whether we disagree with each other or not. We still should be unified. So I wouldn't have a problem with that. But I do see what John is saying. I do see what you're saying.
if you diagram the sentence Okay, the board will annually set goals, that's the thrust here. Not setting, okay?
Yeah,
And then the rest is window dressing, as far as that particular phrase goes.
Well, we definitely don't have a governance team, so that definitely.
So you could put,
That
the
definitely.
board will annually set goals. 2, 1, provide a starting point for effective goal setting and long-range planning. Or you could have, the board will annually set goals and perform a self-evaluation. Leave it out of the policy about who's gonna do what this year and who's gonna do what the next year in terms of driving the process. How about the board will annually set goals and will go through a process of annual self-evaluation. Leave it at that.
Instead of the method it's done,
Hmm?
instead of what you have to do to get it done, yeah, I could agree with that, John.
Yeah.
Okay, so taking that one step forward, further then, the board will annually set goals and conduct an annual self-evaluation.
Yep.
What's the purpose of the goals and what is the purpose of the self-evaluation? What's the purpose?
What are the purpose of the goals?
What's the purpose of setting the goals and having an annual evaluation?
it's-
What is the,
To have them, to make
One,
it
two.
a measuring, to make it a measuring tool, so
It's
that
down-
you, that
right
you
down-
are, because if you don't set goals in,
Purpose is-
right, I'm just getting at that red
Purpose
part of
is
the
all the
sentence
red
that says what it
stuff,
was
too.
designed for.
yeah.
That's
Is
the
going to
purpose
the
too.
purpose.
That's the purpose too.
So I'm just,
But do you have to
if you
state
just
the
do it so
purpose there?
plainly to say you'll annually set goals and you'll have a self-evaluation, well, what is the purpose behind those?
because if you don't have goals, then how are you evaluating? I mean, how are you know whether you're making mark or not if you don't have goals? So I mean,
I get it, what I'm
right,
saying is if we take out that second part of the
Yeah,
sentence,
she's
we remove
saying-
the purpose.
But you need to be
Behind it.
complex or
Like a
something.
vacuum bubble.
That's the
Yeah.
argument English
It's
was.
great to say it, but what the heck is it for?
Yeah.
You know,
So-
well,
so-
I know you're saying, you're answering the question,
Uh-huh.
but it's not answered right now if we
Yeah.
take out that second part of the sentence.
Complex clears it up a lot more than simple.
okay, we'll say because maybe I didn't understand. Can you say what he's saying?
Yeah. Well, I think what John's issue is with this design to assist the board and governance team to that red part, right?
That's my
So John
motive.
was
Yeah.
presenting that we take that part out. And
Oh,
I'm
okay,
saying if
okay,
we
okay.
take that part out,
Okay.
you lose the purpose of the initial part of the sentence.
Got you.
That's the only part that concerns me.
Got you.
I
Okay.
think David has something to say.
How about if we had designed to assist the board, comma, the governance team, comma, to build a unified body of effective leaders?
Well, that's and John, but David has something to say. Nice.
Yes, David?
I agree with Rachel. The specificity is nice, and I don't believe it is harmful in any way to leave that in there. Because otherwise you're gonna argue about the purpose of the self-evaluation. And we had those arguments before. And we've never done a self-evaluation.
Thank you
So,
for your opinion. All right, we're gonna put it to a vote.
that is my opinion, yes, John.
Yeah. Well, you said the same thing to me at the last results meeting, so I think it's an appropriate comment.
I'm good.
Also, quick question. Quick comment. I was gonna say also, why don't we just, if that's the case, then just take out the governance team because we don't have one, and just put designed to assist the board and to build a better unified body. I mean that's the. Just take out governance team because we realistically we don't have a governance team. Just take that out and keep it moving. Because realistically we don't have a governance team.
And what y'all are?
Huh?
Like
What
one.
kind of team are the officers?
We're officers, but at the end of the day, we're all the officials. So my thing is, yes, the elected officials realistically as officers. We decide what goes on the agenda, Hold on. We decide what goes on the agenda at the meetings, and the officer.
That's the-
Right, hold on, no, that's not it.
That's the part of governance we're
right.
talking about.
Okay, right. The officers decide what goes on the meeting at the meeting, and then also the chair decide says who speaks at the meeting. But at the end of the day, we all equal. We all are elected officials. So therefore, why? I mean, why do we have to specifically say that when we basically all evaluate ourselves?
So, can I make a suggestion?
I don't
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
How about we scratch the terminology governance team and just replace it with board officers? So that it doesn't hold that weight of the word governance, and we're just identifying them,
Governance team.
so it doesn't give that
I still don't,
word.
if that's what you want, but I still haven't been convinced, shown any value to highlight the officers as a separate part of the process.
Well, then you don't, then if you don't put that in, then you don't, and you won't be able to do that anytime.
Okay, let me ask
You
this,
won't evaluate them at all.
John, do you hold the board officers to a certain standard?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think this
Right.
is saying that we hold not only the board, but also the board officers to a certain standard that aligns with the purpose of the goals and the self-evaluation. So, if we take them out,
Yeah, and you're holding them to
then everybody's the
officer
same,
standards,
and they
right?
aren't held to a certain standard.
Well, I think everybody is the same as officers, only because I have a much narrower definition of what the officers do than you do, it seems. Okay,
I don't know,
All right.
what do you think my definition is?
Huh?
What do you think mine is then? I don't think you have a
is that
definition
they
of what
have
mine is.
additional responsibilities beyond the agenda and being presiding officer at the meeting.
No, I hold them to whatever standard is written. So whatever their jobs or responsibilities are, need to be able to be evaluated and have goals set for them. The same as,
Okay,
you know what I mean?
yep. All right, so how about if we have them to design to assist the board and officers
And board
to build a
officers?
unified,
Yeah, take out governance team,
Yeah,
and board
that's-
office, I think that if we just say board officers,
John will be happy.
I think it
But
takes away
everybody else
that
knows what
weight
governance
of the
team
whole
means.
governance concept.
okay, to design to assist the board and the board officers, is that what you?
Cause I don't think governance team is used anywhere else throughout the policy manual either, so unless it's defined specifically somewhere else.
But it was state information there, that probably didn't come from us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
To build a unified body of effective leaders. I'd be happier to say, to see, designed to assist the board and the board officers to achieve continuous improvement.
I'm sure you would score with that. I mean, what's wrong with that? I'm sure you would take out unified body,
Okay,
but
all
what's
right.
wrong with it being in there?
Well,
I'm
I-
just stating my opinion
So
like
you-
everybody. Oh,
so you read this to talk about continuous improvement of the district? Cause I read this to mean that we will set
Of the
goals and self-evaluation to look at ourselves as a
Right.
body
yeah, self-evaluation, yeah.
Yeah.
and make sure that. Okay, so can you say what your suggestion is again?
Wants to scratch unified body of effective leader.
Designed to assist the board and
And the
to,
board officers
and the board officers
to build, in building a unified body of effective leaders through continuous improvement. All right, that's fine.
Okay,
The self-evaluation will be designed to provide a starting point for effective goal setting and long-range planning, allow new board members an opportunity to understand board process, roles, and responsibilities. 3, identify strengths and weaknesses of the board as a public body and steps for board development. Improve decision-making by enhancing a common understanding of philosophies and goals. Foster open communication and hold the board accountable to itself and the Beaufort County School District. I'm a little fuzzy on what that means.
That was- Yeah, I'm not sure when that got added. Did we add that?
Huh?
We didn't add that, did we?
No, we did not.
It's a Roman numerals, whatever that is, 11-6 or something,
Yeah.
but we didn't add that.
Well, what you think it means, I mean, what does it mean? I don't know.
I think, excuse me, I think, the school board association added that, because if you go back and look at this, that other policy set, it's one, it's that red definitely is what the school board, association, when they did the review of this policy, like a year and a half ago or something like that, I think their changes on this thing are in red.
So I thought,
Okay.
Maybe that's hold accountable to itself since you're self-evaluating, I don't know.
So does anyone want to hazard a guess as to what it means?
Well,
I mean, it makes sense that the board holds itself accountable to its goals that it has agreed to, okay? But to itself and the district, I'm not sure what that means.
I can make a guess, that we have discharged our duties in terms of looking at the ARs when they're brought before us, the duties that we've assigned the district to present to us and to, when we do our annual work plan, maybe that's it?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense when you add the first part of the sentence, the self-evaluation will be designed to hold us accountable to
Right.
ourselves and to the school district.
Yeah.
Okay,
It, when you add that first part to it, it makes a lot more
Yeah.
sense.
okay. Appoint an independent auditor to conduct an external review of the district's financial condition and report directly to the board. Issue a request for proposals for independent auditor no more than every 5 years.
no more than every 5
Now,
years.
the board
What does that mean?
recently passed a motion to also require the same thing in financial advisors. Is this the appropriate place to add that to the policy?
Do we have the language of it?
Hmm?
Do we have the language?
No, the only language used was to remove the exemption
From
that
the,
allowed it to be a no bid.
right,
Oh, then,
But the intent, I know the intent, because you're on the finance committee, the intent is to have it
Put it
treat
up, yeah.
the financial advisor the same way as the auditor, which is every 5 years, open up the process. You may end up with the same one, who knows?
then the finance committee probably needs to revisit
Yeah,
that
needs
so that
to
we
talk
put
about-
forth a very formal policy that says we
Okay.
want it to be every 5 years, cause if 5 years isn't on there right now, we need to put it on there.
Yeah.
So, are you sure this shouldn't be no
Hopefully,
less than
would
every
you
5 years?
Ask Joanne to do that on the
Yeah, we're kinda-
31st.
Oh, I don't know if we can do it on 31st, cause we're pretty full, but I'll ask her.
That's
And
what
she, I think they
don't
already
know.
made the agenda.
Issue request for proposal for independent auditor,
Okay.
no more than every 5 years.
You sure it's not supposed to be the word less?
Hmm?
No less than?
I'm sorry?
Issue a RFP for independent auditor,
Well, I don't think it makes a difference, right?
no more than
Does
every
it?
5 years, or no?
They, well, if you ask Tanya, it's probably supposed to
Can't
be no
let,
more,
can't go,
because,
you can't go
she-
more than over 5 years before you,
well, she explained like the historical background that all the auditors have, and if we did go, if it said no less,
Yeah,
and we were going out like every year, every 2 years for that, it would make things extremely cumbersome and expensive. So I think it's supposed to, I think that's
But you
why she
could,
had to
I
say no
mean-
more.
okay.
well, yeah, I think you should
I
say
think
that.
What was your question?
If the word more should really be less.
Yeah, I think
No
it should-
less, oh,
I think it should be less. Because less don't tie you to a year or two, but less says 5, it's gotta be
it's
done,
gotta be
There's
at
no-
least 5.
Yeah. it's gotta be done,
okay, yeah, you're right,
you know.
I think it's supposed to be the word less.
Well, okay,
yeah.
when it says issue a request for proposals of independent auditor
Yeah, that sounds awkward.
no more often than every 5 years, I'm putting that word in there. Does that prohibit them for going out for RFPs more frequently?
I think it's supposed to be no less often than every 5
Should
years.
it be at least every 5 years
Yeah,
or
exactly,
something like
at
that?
least.
At least every 5 years? I don't know.
Should
Yeah.
we ask,
I think that's the idea. You don't
Well,
want
no
somebody-
less means you got them for 5 years, right?
Right,
right, which is what our practice
So
is.
what happens if you're not
every 5
happy
years.
with your auditor?
Oh, that's true.
No more, I guess is right.
Hmm?
No more
what
is
did you
probably
say?
right.
I said
At
at least
least.
every.
At least every 5
That's
years.
the
No more is the same as at least.
No more sounds awkward to me.
Sounds awkward, but, yeah. At least.
yeah, at least
At
makes
least
it
makes
sounds better.
I think we should make a note for this specific item to be discussed at the full board level.
Well, it's gonna be anyway.
Yeah, I know, just like a notation to highlight it,
Yeah.
maybe in the reading, that this is something that we were not exactly
Sure
positive
about.
on the intention of the no more part, and we wanted to make sure that
What's the
we're,
spirit of the,
what's the spirit of it, yeah?
what's the spirit
The
of,
historical context, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah.
Okay,
Cause Tanya will probably have some input on that, and
So if you
well, I'm
put in,
sure she will.
if you
Yes,
put
ma'am.
in at least, it means that you're gonna issue an RFP every 5 years, or you could do it 4 years or 2 years, but you can't go 6 years without doing
Ah, I
RFP.
got an idea.
Yeah,
Issue a request for proposals for an independent auditor. At a minimum, in a period not to exceed
yeah, exactly.
every 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
So that means they could do it more often, but if they're happy, they gotta do it at 5,
Exactly, that's the idea, I
Yeah.
think, behind it.
okay?
Mhm.
yeah, I
Okay.
just wanna
And
make sure that
an
that's,
auditor in a period not to exceed every 5 years, okay? Okay. Hire and annually evaluate an executive assistant. Is it necessary to say with qualifications meet those contained within the job description?
Well, the job
Well,
description
job
might be
description.
fluid,
That's-
like, the job
No.
description, it
That's
might
a
be
good point.
fluid. I think we have a new one that we're gonna bring forward that brought, suggestions and made it in line with our policies. There were now maybe those policies have been taken out, but there were things in our policy manual that weren't listed as job expectations for our administrative assistant, but they were, written in here that things that he or she, that position would do at certain time, so.
I
Okay.
think it's fine.
14, regularly and routinely seek input from students, parents, educational stakeholders, employees, members of school improvement councils, and other persons interested in education in Beaufort County, and engage in frequent, transparent, and effective communication with the goal of fostering a diverse community vested in the academic achievement of all students.
I think there's a space.
Nice aspiration, I'm not sure if that's policy.
I was gonna ask how you measure that.
I'm sorry?
I was gonna ask how you measure that.
Right, yeah, move to strike,
I don't know.
or we'll have to play a soundtrack anytime we read it. Okay?
Wait, what's that part?
One thing about the public here in this county is we never have to ask them for their opinion. They're always more than willing to give it.
So that means you don't need to worry about it then.
Okay?
And then if you strike it, you still have to accept them.
I'm sorry?
I'm saying, if that's your policy, then what's the problem?
I think that
You always get input like you say. It ain't that we have to really do something to make this happen. and you do have it as policy as opposed to saying, I don't have it as policy, so I'm not listening to you, I'm deleting.
And it's in your statute too, about, meetings of the
Well-
qualified electors to
Well,
consult.
I just the only thing I have, a small, I'm looking back at my very first one when we went through this, and we deleted what was, I believe, number 9 maybe, where it says build coalitions with parents, community members, and groups representing the diverse elements of Beaufort County, and we added the word diverse, so we were trying to combine those two. So I just wanna make sure that if we do strike this, that we somehow readdress the diverse aspect of things, because I think that's.
I mean, a
that's important.
community's diverse or it's not, how do we foster it?
Yeah.
Well, we have conversations, and that
But-
goes to 14. And we listen.
I could see fostering community participation, but I can't see fostering a diverse community. The community's diverse whether or not they have anything to do with us. That's a descriptor, that's a demographic descriptor.
Yeah, but it goes further than just fostering diverse community.
I know what they mean, and it's good that they tried to explain that. I'm just going at it, trying to get it, and as Kathy says, how are we gonna measure ourselves on that? Did the board have enough
The-
formal ways of getting input, or did individual members?
Here's
is-
the way I see it. We foster a diverse community by listening to everybody north and south of the Broad, every community, every neighborhood, every ethnicity that's represented here. So that's how we do it.
That's how it goes.
And that's the goal, is to make sure that we are listening and fostering that line of communication with all those different representative communities.
We're fostering the vested interest,
Interest.
that's what we're fostering. This happens to be diverse communities' vested interest.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's an aspiration, is it a policy?
Answer that question yourself. Is an aspiration a policy?
No, is it an
Could it be?
aspiration or is it a policy?
I think
I don't think
it's
it's an aspiration.
both, you know.
I think this is specifically saying we should regularly and routinely seek the input. We should regularly and routinely ask all of the represented communities in our districts and the county. We should regularly seek their input on matters relative to education in Beaufort County. I think that's all it says.
So how are we gonna judge whether
We
whether
hire
an
it.
individual
Well-
is regularly and routinely doing that?
I could effectively
We
say
do
that
that.
we do this because we have someone that handles PR. Plain and simple. We have someone that goes out there and asks the community. We have a PR representative. We have someone that's engaging the community, constantly keeping them updated on things. I mean, we're doing this.
Okay. Christina?
Alright, so I see this as, well, one, we have public comment, that allows,
Right.
That's part of it.
that's part of it. We have school improvement council, we meet with them, twice a year. We have,
Highlight stuff.
the teacher, group.
Forum.
Yeah, but it's not
The new
just
one.
the new one,
Right.
exactly.
We have the super forum now.
The super
Yeah.
forum.
Yeah.
So we do all those things, but the problem is, I think it's trying to say that we basically listen to all voices, don't let one group, ha-
Drive the conversation.
drive the conversation. But I don't see how you can, first of all, public comments, for example, we don't comment back. So that's not really communicating with those people, we're just listening. Now we may act upon, or, whatever, something that they've brought forward. I think with the goal of, I think a diverse community is, I think the idea of that is to allow that everybody has their
There's a
input, like
voice.
you've said, north and south of the Broad, whatever group it is, they're allowed to express whatever they wanna express. But I'm not really sure how you can measure this.
Well,
I think it's
Well-
a super goal for a self-evaluation. Did we do that? But as a policy, I'm just trying to go by the strict definition of a policy.
Yeah, well, John, I think I'm concerned that we don't think that's a policy. I think that's a part of what our policies have to be. I think we have to direct or design something that this happens. And I, you know, I see, you know, we've done some things like that, like the SIC meetings, like the superintendent had a ecumenical,
Lunch.
meeting. These things got to be a part of what we have to control. We can't just hope and aspire that he does it,
You know,
or that they do it.
there's a couple other examples, you know, we did the community committees for Whale Branch
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
Hilton Head Middle School.
yes.
Yeah,
Um,
and trying to pick a,
Yeah,
diverse
a
group of
diverse
people.
group, and we did the community for the referendum,
yeah.
yeah.
I think it goes to a policy when you look at it from a stakeholder perspective. I mean, that's important for us to be
Oh, yeah.
engaged in.
Sure, I'm not, you're making it sound like I'm against that,
No,
I'm not.
exactly.
I'm just I'm questioning whether it needs to be a policy or is it a goal that we set for ourselves, that's all.
Yeah, I understand.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying, is it a policy or not in terms of what we want? If it's a policy, if we want it, then we can set it up as a policy. And I don't know about your measuring tools, but if we want to make sure regularly we're meeting with certain constituencies, absolutely regularly we have to be doing that. Now, what regularly means,
You
could
could,
be 2 times.
all right,
Yeah.
so let's take that, how does that, what happens if you think that somebody else is not holding enough as many town halls as they should?
Well, I don't care, but what I think, I'm talking about us as a group deciding that they need to have 2 town halls or 3 town halls, and that'll be our direction to the superintendent that you gotta have town halls to get this referendum passed and stuff like that. You gotta hold meetings, and we got to push that, not allow that,
Not
that's
for
all
the
I'm saying.
referendum, we can't.
Well, no, we can't push it, we pushing, yeah,
You can push backs all you
you
want.
can put, right,
Education,
yeah, you
No,
can
it
push,
is
you
for
can push,
education, but there's a fine line.
yeah, but you can push, you can go and enlighten the people, or not. What's our direction for that? If we got no policy and we say, hey, he said I ain't doing nothing, you got that in the policy, and we don't have to do anything.
Okay, let's go back to policy 101.
Okay,
One of the first precepts is, if you can't measure it, it's not a policy.
There's a lot of stuff there, that we can strike there. Strike,
Then we
right,
just
strike
strike-
3/3 of these,
Yeah, exactly.
3/3.
that's a whole.
Yeah, that's right.
Caught that.
I mean, some people do a real good job of representing their constituency without having excessive dialogue with them. And some people prefer to talk to their constituencies on an extremely regular basis.
Trying to be all the way
It's
down there.
whatever the individual feels necessary to inform them enough to make a realistic vote.
Alright, that was number what, 14 we on?
Huh?
Yes,
Alright, we got past 8. Foster the participation, how you measure that? Advocate for the needs of, how do you measure that? You know, all of these things, you know, if you wanna look at measuring tools, you can develop measuring tools for any of these things.
Well,
Don't
and
have to be a number, numerical, you know, objective measuring.
And to that point, the measurement tool isn't always developed when the policy is developed. So really you're looking at how efficient is the policy.
Yeah.
So if we have a policy that's set forth that says we're supposed to regularly and routinely seek input from, and we can point to the fact that we allow public comment, we send them a follow-up note afterwards, well, there's your communication right there with the
I
public.
don't say we're not doing
The
it.
SICs, all that. You can look at it as being efficient and following the letter of the policy.
I think we're doing it, and I think though, that we take the risk of it not happening if it's not here.
no, to me, our number one job is to get the community vested in the academic future of all students. That is
Right.
it, that is what our goal is.
things would be a
Get the
lot more
community
successful and
invested in
more,
that.
I think we need to encourage a heck of a
Period.
lot more
That's
people to be involved.
So
So,
why don't we say regularly and routinely seek input from all stakeholders in the county, period, without trying to define
That's
who
good.
they are.
Mhm.
Some of you feel left out. The Polish American Club may decide that they wanted to be listed in the policy or somebody to input to us,
Good.
you know,
Go ahead.
right?
so true.
So why don't we just say,
Lawns of America.
seek input from the stakeholders of the county and engage in frequent, transparent, and effective communication with same.
Jim, I just want the language to be there. and
We can put
it is a
stakeholders,
policy.
that's all encompassing, that's fine
Yeah.
for me.
Mhm.
Everybody's a stakeholder if
Yes.
you live here.
All stakeholders in Beaufort
Everybody's
County, is that what you
Yeah,
said?
Right.
yeah. That's a good
There are
body.
those who will say that that stakeholders were not created equal. I don't believe that, okay, but there are those that will tell you that.
Yeah,
But I believe that everybody every citizen of the county is a stakeholder in the
Yeah.
education system.
Okay.
Now, on which one?
Yeah, 14.
we're back at the beginning, policy 2.1, Roman numeral two, A, 14.
14, we just,
We just agreed to just make it say
Okay.
stakeholders.
Regularly and routinely seek input from county stakeholders.
You can, yeah. No, I'd just say stakeholders, I wouldn't say county.
Okay, county state.
From what?
I would say, I
You
would
wouldn't
say
in Beaufort
stakeholders.
County, just all stakeholders?
I'd say regularly and routinely seek input from stakeholders
Okay,
and other persons interested in education in Beaufort County.
yeah,
I wouldn't limit it to the county, I'd just say,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a great point.
I actually,
and then we're gonna, and does that take off the last sentence?
Take off some of
Other
that, yeah.
persons,
and engage in frequent, transparent, and effective communication with the goal of fostering a diverse community vested in the academic achievement of all students. It's a pretty big sentence, but you just shortened it. It's a pretty big sentence, but you just shortened it significantly.
So read it again?
I think it got shortened into regularly and routinely seek input.
Regularly and
Well,
routinely
that's
seek
good,
input
yeah,
from
yeah.
stakeholders
From
and
stakeholders.
other persons interested in education in Beaufort County and engage in frequent, transparent, and effective communication with the goal of fostering a diverse community vested in academic achievement of all students. Ooh, that
So moved.
yeah, that's awesome, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
sounds great.
So basically you're striking out, you're striking out, 14 and putting that, what you just said, Rachel?
Yeah,
Yeah,
correcting
right.
out some of the things you for.
Modifying it a little
Yeah,
bit,
modifying
Yeah.
14.
Okay.
slight modification.
Okay, last but not least, for the evening, the board will serve in an executive function to the extent it hires a superintendent
That's where that
who's
is.
qualified by, we've already seen that, okay?
Yeah,
Everybody all right with that?
word.
That's the last one.
Okay. And the last one in the section, the board will serve in a quasi judicial function when it acts on appeals by parents, legal guardians, students, or non-certified employees on decisions made by the superintendent on his or her designee. Okay?
Did we-
Why is it leaving out certified?
Yeah, we decided to change it to just say or employees, I think there was a lot of discussion
Employees.
around
Yeah.
whether it
Yeah,
should say
no,
non-certified,
some are
and then we decided
certified.
to leave
Right.
it. So
Right.
non-certified needs
Yeah.
to be scratched.
Yes.
And
Right.
we've delegated our responsibility in that regard to the hearing officer, at least for,
Some of
I know
them.
for, at least for,
The teacher dismissal,
Exactly.
yeah, for teacher dismissal, we have a hearing
So
officer.
we're gonna resume on Roman numeral eight.
Well, now speaking of, delegating our authorities to a hearing officer, to what regards would that be for every, because I don't think that we should delegate. I don't think, if teachers are coming to us, I don't think that we should delegate that, that's something that I would like to revisit. I don't think we should be delegating that to any hearing officer, because it is our job to handle those issues, because the hearing officer, that's just something that I think that we need to revisit.
The problem is, excuse me, I didn't mean to talk with a mouthful. problem is if you, the policy as it stands says we are responsible. So if you're gonna offload that to a hearing officer, great, but it should be stated as such. Because the unintended consequences of what we went through in the Oneana affair is that we were kept in the dark. We didn't know a thing about what was going on because the lawyer kept advising that if we knew what was going on, it would jeopardize our ability to make an informed, impartial verdict on the recommendation of the hearing officer.
Right,
Okay.
right.
So, to me, we've got to, but we also have the option of not hearing a hearing officer. So I think it ought to be one way or the other, but, and spelled out. You know,
So, I know for the, having looked at that policy very carefully when that whole man thing was going on, the teacher dismissed, having looked at the policy, it's really an AR.
Yeah.
And
I
there's
believe
a
it's
policy-
33, if
yeah.
I remember correctly.
And 3.10 is teacher dismissal hearing process.
Yeah, so for the teacher dismissal hearing process, that's the only one I can, speak to since that's the one I reviewed. You're not talking about like a hearing officer, somebody in the district office. It has to be, remember, somebody who is competent in, or certified in mediation, had to have a law, had to be licensed to practice law, I mean, in
oh,
the
yeah,
subject
yeah,
line. I mean,
recruitment
there's
requirements,
very
stipulations, yeah.
strict criteria, and obviously somebody like that is gonna be so much better able to conduct the hearing than none of us, 11 members, have a law background. And so they're gonna be more efficient at conducting a hearing, somebody who's an attorney with a mediation background. And then all they're gonna do after that is provide all that, their decision along with all the evidence to an attorney that the board hires, but yet we are the ones that ultimately make that decision. So it cuts down on a lot of work it would require for us to do, and I don't think we're even, have the skill set to do it. I mean,
Well, that's, yeah, and that's why it says
Well,
quasi-judicial, because they're,
Well,
the hearing officer only is responsible for the evidentiary part of it.
right,
Right.
We're responsible for the final
exactly.
decision.
Exactly.
Right, but
Definitely a non-certified.
But I think that I hear what Dr. Guaz is saying. However, I've saw an actual hearing happen, and they've had a hearing officer there, well, the hearing, our hearing, an attorney there who pretty much kind of advised the board with a formal past situation within the district. I actually went to the hearing, and the hearing was maybe about 4 or 5 days, and the board heard the case, and upon the board hearing the case, an attorney was actually there for the board to advise the chair and the board what cannot happen, what can happen, when injections can happen, and therefore the board was able to get it firsthand to make a better ruling of it versus reading. You can read something and perceive it different versus you actually being there, because you can write that on someone and make it some kind of assassination depending on how you want it versus actually being there. So I think that we're doing the person a disservice by not actually being there and seeing it, by just reading what's been stated or how the hearing officer feels. So I mean, from me, with my experience of actually being in there and seeing one taking place and seeing an actual attorney being there to advise the board, I view it a little different.
I hear you, but the way this is written,
I think it's written right.
on appeals by parents and legal guardians and students, so let's say that a parent says, I want exercise choice and put my child at River Ridge.
Right.
And River Ridge says, or the superintendent says, sorry,
Oh, right.
can't do it because we're reached that ceiling.
Right.
Parent goes, I want to appeal to the board. Are we gonna hire a hearing officer for that?
No, that's why I think this is written correctly. I think that's why they have non-certified in there.
Well,
Certified
All right,
folks have that hearing officer
Yeah.
chain of.
Are we
Yeah,
satisfied that this
usually-
would allow us, give us the option on a case-by-case basis to hire a hearing officer? Or,
No, that's dealing with non-certified, and I think non-certified get the same jurors as certified. I don't think non-certified, I think fire non-certified, and they can appeal, and we have to hear the appeal. Superintendent said, you're gone, and they can appeal, but it's gotta come to us, we're not gonna hire a hearing officer to hear that appeal.
We heard an appeal
certified.
regarding not somebody who, were you on the board with some?
What?
We heard an appeal, the board heard an appeal in executive session, about a student not being accepted to, a Riverview charter school, were you there?
Okay, that was before my time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we heard an appeal, that was a
Right.
student,
Okay.
that wasn't, delegated to a hearing officer.
I think all of them would be heard by us.
I'm still, I gotta admit, you know, I wanna be frank, I was looking today at the legal bills from, Newark and Heiser, we're paying out $90,000 a year for bond counsel and Newark's selling the bonds. So I'm getting really skitsy about legal expenses. That was in your board docs.
Yeah, I saw it, but you know what, that's tied, it's right in the contract with them, it's not like, it's tied into how big the bond is and how much money, and it's all
For
tied
Newark,
into-
not for Heisner, there's no documentation anywhere about how Franny gets paid. Nowhere.
I thought it was in
It's,
there.
it's not in the agreement, it's not in the resolution, it's nowhere.
Can I get us back on this real quick, cause I have a question. Policy 3.1, teacher dismissal hearing process is relative to this, so that's why I wanted to touch on it.
Yep.
I admit I'm ignorant to the ARs and whether or not this should be titled certified or non-certified employees dismissal hearing process. Because this outlines
Where are you?
pursuant to, 3.1, it's
Which one?
3.10, excuse me, 3.10.
310?
310, yeah. It says teacher dismissal hearing process.
What she said, what page is that, Rachel?
It doesn't
It's
have
not
a
marked.
Oh,
page
okay,
number. It's
oh,
under
okay.
3.10.
3.10.
Okay.
So I just
Yeah,
want,
I believe it's also, exactly, I'm
Oh,
pretty sure
okay.
it's in the state statute, because it would include a principal,
right,
this,
this just says teacher though, and I think that we maybe need to change the heading. And that's why I was looking at that, because when we started talking about the South Carolina law that allows us to have the hearing officers, I had a couple questions. Number one is, why does this just say teacher dismissal? And number two, it says pursuant to South Carolina law, the board delegates its authority to hold evidentiary hearings to one or more hearing officers. Now, is South Carolina law saying that we have to use the hearing officers, or is it saying that we just have the option?
Then,
with the option, I'm 99% sure.
okay, so the policy should not say delegates then, should say can or may delegate.
This almost seems like you have to, when it says delegate, South Carolina, the board delegates its authority to hold. I would
Yeah.
rather it be a lot more clear that we have the option
Correct,
to use one.
absolutely.
And I'd like it to encompass everyone, whether it be certified,
Yep.
not, I want it to mirror the
Yeah,
ARs. I just think
and
this
that's what I was
makes
gonna,
sufficient.
and that was gonna be my question. I was gonna ask a question of, now, I think, basically what you're saying is that, not just teachers should have due process, but teacher assistants and uncertified staff should have due process too, right? Because,
Well, I'm just trying to make sure that the
No, I
heading
wouldn't
is
say.
correct with whatever South Carolina law is allowing us to do, cause I have a feeling that 3.10 is somehow encompassing what authority is given in
Yeah.
that.
Do you want me to read the statute?
Yeah.
It allows us to do it, but it doesn't require us to do it, is it?
It's 5925-460, it's no such dismissal, hearing and costs. It says, a board that chooses to delegate the evidentiary hearing to one or more
Okay.
designees shall indicate in board policy that engages in this practice. The
This is
hearing
the,
process becomes effective when the board adopts the policy and must be communicated to all effective employees within 15 days. A subsequent change only may be made pursuant to the board policy revision, and then it talks about if the board chooses to delegate, the designee must be, and it lists the requirements designated by the board. If the designee holds a hearing, he shall issue a written report and recommendation containing findings of fact and conclusions of law to the board, superintendent, teacher, within 15 days after the hearing concludes. The superintendent teacher may submit a written response to this report recommendation to the board within 10 days after the date on which the report recommendation are issued, after which the board shall issue a decision affirming or withdrawing the notice of suspension or dismissal within 30 days.
Yeah, we
In
had,
the interim, the board may conduct a hearing on the order to consider any written responses from the superintendent and teacher, but this hearing may not operate to extend the 30-day time limit in which the board shall issue its decision affirming or withdrawing the notice of suspension or dismissal. The board retains final decision-making authority regarding the teacher dismissal or suspension recommendation based on its consideration of the record, the report recommendation, and any written submission of the superintendent and teacher.
Okay,
so,
so
So that's why this policy is.
first sentence
not
says,
about
if the
certified.
board chooses to.
Right.
Okay, it doesn't, it leaves open whether it is a blanket, all-time delegation, or
Right.
whether it's on a case-by-case
Case.
It
basis.
says, yeah, let me
Which
just
tells
read
me
it,
we
no,
can.
yeah, just, I just wanna make
Can
sure.
you tell me, before you read it, can you tell me what that
Wait a
number
minute,
is?
Wait.
Will, one at a
I'm trying to
time,
figure
okay?
out the case, the
Well,
number.
Please, everybody else is raising their hand. Would you do the same?
I'm just asking for the number, Madam Chair, Sir Chairman.
Sorry.
I just wanted to, if she would actually.
I wrote it down, I'll give it to you.
Oh, thank you, okay.
It's
so thank you.
5925-460. I just wanna read the statute to everybody so it's clear. It's not my words, it's in the statute. The board that chooses to delegate the evidentiary hearing to one or more designees, as provided in this section, shall indicate in board policy that it engages in this practice. The hearing process becomes effective when the board adopts a policy and must be communicated to all affected persons within 15 days. A subsequent change only may be made pursuant to the board policy revision process, so
Okay,
only
so-
to change, yeah.
So can we state in a policy then that we will delegate, choose to delegate on a case-by-case basis?
But who are the affected persons?
Okay,
I want
here.
who are the affected persons? It says that we will make it clear to whoever the affected persons are. I'm not clear what our AR says about who this affects, non-certified, certified.
All right,
What is, that's the caveat that I think needs to be addressed in our policies. Right now it just says teacher
Teacher.
dismissal.
It
all right,
says no
let's
teacher in the
decide what we
statute.
want the policy to
There's no
be.
teacher.
And, wait a minute, let's decide what we want the policy to be, and then the administration will modify the AR as necessary.
But if statute says who the affected persons could be, then we need to first mirror statute.
Yeah, the question is,
Yeah,
If
her
does it come
question,
from there, does it come from
her
the AR,
question-
or does it
Yeah,
come
you're right,
from-
Richard.
well,
Yes,
Okay, so this is the policy right now, is that the board did delegate, teacher dismissal hearing processes to a hearing officer. To me, reading the state statute is, the board, it's not on a case-to-case basis, it's either the board does this,
Or they don't.
or they don't. That's exactly what's
That's
here.
what the statute
Because
says.
that's not really fair to the teacher that's
parent.
being dismissed. Oh, let's see, we're gonna take this on ourselves. I think we'd be foolish to take this on ourselves. I mean, as a physician, I don't know the rule of law. That's the whole point of having an attorney do the evidentiary hearing and provide the information to us. I mean, these people, this is what they're trained to do. And, you know, we all have different backgrounds and different careers, or, and I just think why we would wanna get involved with this. It could go on for weeks, or certainly days.
well, I understand what you're saying, but a decision on what school the kid's gonna go to can be made by the board or on an appeal overnight, rather than, I guarantee you, if we put it in the hands of an attorney, it will take at the minimum
We're not
weeks.
talking that though, that's what you don't understand. This is
I-
only teacher dismissal, this is like
that
principal,
was my point.
teacher.
It's teacher.
Then maybe we need to separate the two policies.
What we're talking
It
about,
is. That's
what
why
we're
it's
talking
written.
about here is a policy that
Correctly
says
written.
it acts on appeals by parents, legal guardians, students, employees, or, and decisions made by the superintendent on his or her designee.
That's why not.
That's why non-certified is in there. Have we
Yeah.
argued that already?
Yeah.
But I had in my notes that we decided not to do non-certified.
No, we decided not, then we came back and
I
put
think
non.
exactly, I think I
Yeah, we
remember.
decided not to,
Yeah.
and then we came back and put non,
Imagine.
because of that, yeah, well, I'm telling
Christina,
you.
I agree with you
But-
wholeheartedly
Yeah.
on certified, but to have to hire a lawyer based on a decision about choice, or a decision
Oh, no, I'm
about
not
whether
saying
to
that
use
at
the,
all.
well, this policy ties us
No,
to
it
those
doesn't.
type of decisions.
It doesn't.
This is the one that.
Yeah, that ties
We're talking
you,
about
Research-
pretend,
we're talking about
pretend ties into that for a teacher.
Yeah.
right, that's,
But this is, the one we're talking about is not about teachers, and that's why I think non-certified is correct. Yes.
thank you. Because, okay, so
Then
then we do need to keep non-certified. Cause I had it crossed out and I don't remember why. We have to
Yeah,
watch
we
the
did
tape.
back and forth.
I think we
crossed
got back
it
and
out.
forth.
We crossed it and we went back and forth.
Once
The
again,
next time.
I still think that us hearing teaching situations, it should be the board hearing it from beginning to end. I think it's wrong for us to have hire a hearing officer to come in and hear that. That's what we signed up for. I think that we should hear it from the beginning to the end, so that we can see it and we can understand it, versus having it second here, because one ear may be better than another ear, versus the attorney's gonna say, he may come in and say, hey, look, I'm looking for just this, and this is basically what I'm gonna give the board. I think that we should hear these situations because of the fact that no matter what our job is, you take as judges, you have magistrate judges who may not be attorneys. They have those cases. Are we saying that because being that they don't have a law degree, that they should not be magistrate judges? At the end of the day, they are still magistrate judges, and they still hear those cases. So, with that being said, we said that we are the governing body of this district, and if a teacher brings a situation, then the teacher can say, well, I feel that the board didn't hear it, or based upon the transcript they got from the attorney, then that's that. But I think with an attorney there who's going to do the same thing, that he can advise us or tell us, hey, look here, based upon this is my note that I took. These are some of the facts that I thought that you guys should go off of, and from there we vet and understand and process the information that the attorney gives us, because that way I think that now you're there from beginning to the end. That's just.
All right, what you haven't made clear to me is, are you dealing with certified only?
I'm talking about the situation of teachers, and actually also I'm going to say I also think that teachers that uncertified should have a due process also.
Teachers that are not certified?
Yeah, teachers who are not certified. I think they uncertified staff should have due process as well.
Well, that goes to C.
That's
That goes to
due process.
the
That is
non-certified.
due
Okay, so,
process.
all right,
So
so
they
let's say somebody
Okay.
asks the principal for a personal thing, and the principal says no, and they want to appeal the decision, we gotta hire a lawyer for it?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I don't think that we should be hiring an attorney as much as for the process with these teachers. I think the board should have those issues. That's all I'm
Yeah,
saying.
I think that's what the,
Well, no. If you hire a hearing officer, then the hearing officer hears it, and then he pushes you his transcripts. He pushes you information of his decision, versus the board actually being there and hearing it, and that person and an attorney can be there as well to advise you, versus actually you not hearing it as a board member. Because to me,
But
my
we still
constituent.
receive all the evidence that's submitted from that hearing officer. They don't cherry pick what evidence, we get all of that, and we get their
let me
recommendation.
say one thing. and I'll-
So it's not,
I just perceive it as I think that we should be there and we should hear it, and an attorney can be there to advise us or whatnot, because when I seen it before, it was done in the correct manner form. It was no problem. The board actually heard it itself. They didn't get they didn't get second information. They got it, they digested it, and they made the decision.
All right, just my opinion.
Yes, sir.
I think we're arguing about the difference between navy blue and sky blue.
Okay.
I think that what's written here
Uh,
is to handle relatively minor, simplistic complaints.
Yes.
Handling teacher issues is a minefield legally. I think we learned that from the Onan affair,
That's true.
okay? That we can get ourselves in trouble 6 ways from Sunday on handling a teacher. If you read, have you ever read chapter 59 in the state statutes about teacher protection? That's what governs the whole certified appeal process.
right.
So I think that we need a policy to handle all the different classifications except certified. And then the certified teachers get handled according to the state statute, and that our board policy reflect that.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, 310.
according to
Three
what
point 10 is that.
they read, though, we do have a choice in terms of choosing or not choosing, right?
Correct,
To
but it
Will's
looks-
point.
Yes,
Yeah.
but it has to be board policy, it doesn't look
That's
like.
right, yeah, but so we
You
have,
can't say a case by case
Oh, we
basis,
have-
some teachers were gonna,
yeah, we
the
have a
board's
choice
gonna
to
do the
change this
dismissal, in
policy.
some cases that's
Why
gonna.
not?
This policy
you read
says
this, it's-
because, yeah,
Where's,
This, okay, here we are, 59, Wendy, 25,
No.
460 says, a board that chooses to delegate the evidentiary hearing to one or more designees, as provided in this section, shall indicate in board policy that it engages in this practice.
that is what?
That it engages in this practice. So you have to tell
That's
the
a-
certified
yeah,
staff, the
okay.
teachers,
Yeah, that become
that that's the
part
way
of the
you
template,
do it,
yeah.
and I think that's, I mean, Will,
That's
this
fine,
would be a
okay.
question for you, how are you going to?
yeah, you.
But that still allows for the distinction between
Conclusions of law, you
certified and
can't do
everybody
that.
else,
I mean,
right?
well, then-
Right.
You can't, if you have an attorney on staff, if you
Well,
have
then
an.
you gotta have an attorney.
Okay.
Well, but that's different versus you come to me and say, hey, Will, I can tell you what, right now, I
Time,
Can I just,
let's,
I think that that's covered under policy 3.10,
Yeah.
and we should discuss that at a full board
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah,
Because
okay,
that
okay.
would require us to
Okay.
rescind.
Yeah, take
What
this
we
policy
announced.
away, right?
Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So, I
thank
think
you
we're-
all for a very invigorating discussion. I love these
Thank
things.
you, Rachel, man.
We are adjourned. See you all next week.